Naomi Judd's life embodied a remarkable tapestry of triumph and tragedy, a mother working multiple jobs, a nurse turned chart-topping country star, and ultimately a respected public figure in health advocacy. Yet behind the bright stage lights and the meteoric climb to stardom, she faced a host of challenges that tested her emotionally, physically, and spiritually. To fully appreciate her journey, it's useful to go beyond the typical biographical sketches and examine the deeper forces at work, the roots of her strong maternal instinct and empathy, the social and cultural environment that shaped her music, the personal demons she had to keep at bay, and the large-scale impact her advocacy would later have. By uncovering lesser-known facets, from her early days in rural Kentucky to the quiet battles with depression and beyond, we can better understand the story of a woman whose resilience became as defining as her vocal harmonies with her daughter, Winona. Naomi Judd was born Diana Ellen Judd on January 11, 1946, in Ashland, Kentucky. This industrial town, known for steel mills and railroad lines, wasn't exactly famous for producing country music icons, yet it was here that Naomi first imbibed the spirit of country and Appalachian folk music, and also confronted the harsh economic realities that her family faced. She grew up at a time when local industries often offered only sporadic employment. Her own father took on various jobs to support the household. In Ashland, life was shaped by the cycles of industrial production, which influenced many families' fortunes. Naomi gleaned from her surroundings a sense of community resilience. Neighbors often banded together during lean times, while also observing that the path out of poverty typically required extraordinary measures. By her teenage years, Naomi was grappling with responsibilities beyond her age. Pregnant at a young age, she gave birth to her first daughter, Winona, on May 30th, 1964. At the time, single motherhood was met with a social stigma that could be devastating, especially in a conservative region. Yet Naomi displayed a capacity for perseverance and optimism that would later become one of her defining traits. She relocated multiple times, eventually training as a nurse to support her family. This career choice wasn't random. She had a powerful empathy and a desire to aid those in distress, qualities that would serve her well in the world of music, where emotional connection with audiences is vital. Nursing also gave her a rigorous understanding of medical procedures and human frailty, shaping the informed perspective she would later bring to her health advocacy. Naomi's move toward expanding her family signaled a new era of both hope and uncertainty. She had wed Michael Simonella in 1964, and not long afterward, on April 19, 1968, she welcomed her second daughter, Ashley, into the world. Yet the marriage did not endure, leaving Naomi responsible for 2 young children on a precarious income. What followed was a difficult but formative period of her life. Determined to give her children a shot at a better future, Naomi packed their limited belongings and left Kentucky behind, opting for California as a more promising destination. It was a bold and perhaps daunting decision. She was still a young mother, struggling to find stability and a sense of direction, yet driven by the conviction that bigger opportunities might be within reach beyond the Appalachian hills she knew so well. Upon arriving in California, Naomi adopted a frenetic juggling act to keep her household running. She worked a patchwork of jobs, day shifts as a nurse in local clinics, occasional nights as a waitress in modest restaurants, anything that could finance her family's rent, groceries, and other daily essentials. Each new role demanded fresh emotional energy, and every paycheck felt vital. At times, she considered returning to school to boost her nursing qualifications, believing it might offer a more sustainable living. But with two small daughters depending on her, lengthy study programs seemed out of reach. Bills, after all, did not pause for academic pursuits. That chapter of Naomi's life, though physically and mentally draining, proved to be a crucible for deeper relationships within the family. She and her daughters occupied cramped apartments in neighborhoods she might never have imagined living in, forging neighborly bonds with people who came from similarly humble backgrounds. Local teachers sometimes noticed the closeness among the Judds and the unwavering support Naomi provided despite her exhaustion. Ashley, a toddler at this point, was bright-eyed and curious, while Winona, older and more aware, began to sense her mother's sacrifices and grew protective of Naomi. These daily trials formed an unbreakable bond that influenced their dynamic for years to come. Music, interestingly, became an unexpected salve for them during these demanding times. While Naomi might have always had a soft spot for singing, she was far from envisioning a future as a professional performer. Music was simply a refuge, something that soothed the sting of fatigue. In their modest living room, Naomi would strum a guitar if she had one available, or simply hum lullabies to calm Ashley for bedtime, often entertaining Winona in the process. These evenings served as a collective exhale, a quick break from the unrelenting grind of real life. Unbeknownst to Naomi, her daughters were absorbing these informal performances, with Winona, in particular, developing an ear for melody that would later mature into a formidable vocal talent. Even as Naomi struggled to pay rent and provide for her children, she resisted viewing her circumstances as a dead end. She was mindful that many in her position might succumb to despair. Single mothers under financial stress, overshadowed by the cost of living in a state as vast and competitive as California. Yet Naomi harnessed her fundamental resilience. She stayed up late reading about personal finance strategies, or rummaging through free local papers in search of better-paying nursing positions. She occasionally found second-hand educational materials to keep Winona and Ashley's curious minds occupied, stoking their potential. Each day, though marked by intense pressure, reaffirmed her sense of purpose. Local acquaintances who glimpsed Naomi's life often marveled at her ability to remain optimistic. Some chalked it up to her deep spiritual roots, a vestige of her Kentucky upbringing, while others saw a pragmatic problem solver who refused to let adversity overshadow the prospects of her children. Yet for all this tenacity, Naomi was not immune to the emotional toll that weighed on her. She privately wrestled with fatigue and isolation, sometimes writing in a journal late at night. In it, she processed anxieties about whether she was offering her daughters enough, or fears about running out of money before the month's end. These pages would become a testament to her inner life, a hidden record of hope, self-doubt, and the raw determination to persevere. Winona and Ashley, in their own ways, sensed the weight on their mother's shoulders. Winona, being older, occasionally stepped in to help with household chores or watch her younger sister, forging a sense of responsibility that would shape her in the years ahead. Ashley, though still little, forged her emotional intelligence by observing her mother's kindness and empathy, which she later carried into her own activism as an adult. Their mother's struggles, while arduous, seeded in them values of compassion, grit, and self-sufficiency, traits that, decades later, would help both daughters build impressive careers in entertainment and activism. Looking back at this period, one can see the elemental seeds of all that Naomi would eventually become. Far from the glitz of future country stages, these were the proving grounds. Days when she juggled multiple roles at once, fueled by a love for her children that overshadowed every other hardship. Perhaps equally important, This chapter sowed the early musical synergy between mother and daughter. Although they had no illusions at this time of becoming famous, the repeated bonding through songs, whether lullabies late at night or rhythmic harmonies shared during chores, was quietly anchoring a path neither realized existed yet. In that way, Naomi Judd's time in California exemplified the twin arcs of adversity and hope. Exhausted from her nursing shifts, she found in her daughters a wellspring of motivation to keep striving. Broke and occasionally uncertain of next month's rent, she clung to a steadfast optimism that her life and her children's futures need not be confined to present difficulties. Few could guess that within a few short years, she and Winona would be singing before massive audiences, that Ashley would capture hearts on the silver screen, or that Naomi herself would become a revered role model, first for single mothers, then for those fighting chronic illness, and eventually for anyone grappling with mental health obstacles. This quietly heroic era in Naomi Judd's life not only set the stage for an eventual ascent, but also formed the crucial emotional framework that fueled her resilience. When fortune finally knocked, when RCA Records recognized the unparalleled harmony of this mother-daughter duo, Naomi already possessed the fortitude and pragmatic savvy to handle the storms that accompany stardom. She had navigated the labyrinth of single parenthood, handled dire financial uncertainty, and still carved out moments of joy through music. That foundation, though tested repeatedly, would remain her bedrock well into her future battles with illness, mental health issues, and the high-stakes realm of celebrity. Ultimately, these early chapters in California illuminate the depth behind Naomi Judd's unwavering love for her family, her relentless dedication to forging a brighter path, and her innate readiness to transform obstacles into songs, symbols, and spiritual lessons for everyone to learn from. It was in the late 1970s that the Judd family relocated to Nashville, the beating heart of country music. Winona, born Christina Claire Simonella, showed prodigious musical aptitude from early on, so the mother-daughter duo's exploration of local music circles felt natural. They spent their free hours singing on front porches and at informal jam sessions, where other country hopefuls discovered that their voices melded with a nearly spiritual synergy. Record executives at RCA Nashville caught wind of these unique harmonies, and in 1983, the Judds demo tape effectively launched them toward stardom. This abrupt shift from single nurse and teenage daughter singing in small gigs to touring major venues was exhilarating, but also stressful. The industry demanded constant production, press appearances, traveling to radio stations, cranking out new material. Naomi, who had once known only the routine of hospital shifts, found herself in the chaotic swirl of paparazzi and fan mania. The Judds' ascent was meteoric. By the mid-1980s, songs like Mama He's Crazy and Why Not Me topped the Billboard country charts, garnering multiple awards, including Grammys. Their signature sound combined elements of acoustic simplicity and lyrical sincerity, reminiscent of the Appalachian ballads Naomi had grown up hearing. Beyond the music, fans connected with the mother-daughter bond they exuded on stage. The warmth they displayed had an authenticity that extended beyond standard showmanship. This was family synergy transposed into melodic lines and heartfelt lyrics. Yet with rising fame came the strains that are inevitable in show business. Naomi, whose natural personality was more maternal than celebrity-driven, had to adapt to a schedule that left little personal time. Meanwhile, Winona, on the threshold of adulthood, dealt with the complexities of forging her own identity while working side by side with her mother. In 1990, the first sign of Naomi's health troubles emerged, bouts of overwhelming fatigue. Though initially dismissed as tour exhaustion, the intensity of her condition soon alarmed her. Multiple doctor visits led to the shocking diagnosis. Naomi had contracted the hepatitis C virus, likely from a needle puncture during her nursing days. In an industry often overshadowed by glitz, illusions of perfect health can overshadow reality. Knowing that advanced hepatitis C can be life-threatening shook Naomi. As some medical professionals predicted she had only a few years to live. This prompted the Judds to announce a farewell tour in 1991, effectively halting a trajectory that could have soared even higher. The farewell was heartbreakingly quick. One moment at the top of the charts, the next forced by illness to retreat from the stage. Yet for Naomi, the shock soon gave way to determination. She wasn't prepared to let her life end at 45. Her journey through treatment was anything but straightforward. Once she received her diagnosis of hepatitis C, likely contracted during her nursing career, Naomi Judd confronted a gauntlet of medical protocols and lifestyle changes that demanded every ounce of her resolve. At the time, hepatitis C treatments were relatively rudimentary by modern standards. Interferon, ribavirin, and similar antivirals were cornerstones of the conventional Western approach, often accompanied by harrowing side effects that could rattle even the most stalwart patient. Naomi, however, refused to pin her hopes solely on these cutting-edge yet draining medical regimens. Alongside them, she embraced an array of complementary and alternative therapies, a decision that signaled both her desire to leave no stone unturned and her recognition of the body's multifaceted needs. She explored herbal concoctions, reputed to strengthen the liver, ventured into acupuncture sessions designed to restore energy flow, and adopted specialized nutritional protocols intended to boost her immune system from the inside out. Such a comprehensive battle plan was not for the faint of heart. Her daily routine quickly became an exhausting cycle of pills, infusions, and appointments with practitioners who offered conflicting opinions. She would endure bouts of feverish chills, overwhelming exhaustion, and periods of emotional volatility, common side effects of the prevailing interferon ribavirin therapy. There were days when she feared her own body was turning against her. She wrote candidly about waking up drenched in sweat only to face a wave of nausea strong enough to make her question whether she could continue. Concentration was fleeting, especially when her mood dipped into dark valleys. Family members recall episodes where Naomi felt incapacitated by the intensity of these treatments, needing extended bed rest in near silence. Despite these punishing routines, her unyielding sense of hope never fully waned. Underlying her determination was a profound sense of responsibility to her daughters, Winona and Ashley, who had already witnessed the unstoppable will that had carried Naomi through single motherhood and an explosive rise to country music fame. Now, in the face of a life-threatening illness, she rallied once more. Fueling her courage were the supportive voices around her, particularly Winona, who had grown up seeing her mother fight for every opportunity, and Ashley, whose emerging activism and empathy mirrored Naomi's own compassionate streak. Both daughters pitched in, sometimes caring for household tasks or simply offering the moral support Naomi needed when side effects made it hard to go on. Friends in the industry also played crucial roles. Some discreetly arranged meal deliveries or recommended healing practitioners they trusted, while others simply stopped by to check on her well-being, determined to reassure her that she was more than just a celebrity subjected to public curiosity. Their gestures underscored a reality often overlooked in celebrity narratives. Intense medical regimens can isolate even the most famous person, relegating them to a quiet existence punctuated by medical visits. The synergy of this collective compassion was perhaps most visible in the countless letters and messages that poured in from around the world. Fans who had once sought solace in the Judds' music now returned the favor, penning heartfelt confessions of how Naomi's songs had brightened their own dark nights and urging her not to lose faith. Some shared stories of their own battles with cancer, autoimmune disorders, or personal traumas, and likened her public candor about hepatitis C to a lifeline. These correspondences created a unique two-way channel. The performer who once sang about resilience and love now found herself on the receiving end of communal empathy, bridging the physical distance between artist and audience. Some letters contained small gifts, crocheted blankets, pressed flowers, or hand-drawn portraits, tokens of solidarity that lined the walls of her recovery space, reminding Naomi that she was enveloped by collective goodwill. Somewhere along this painstaking path, she discovered an unexpected strength. While each medication dosage or acupuncture session could be draining, Naomi also found in them the psychological impetus to keep going. She realized that for every instance of profound exhaustion, there was a possibility of feeling marginally better the next day, a small victory that hinted at overall progress. Physicians and alternative healers, though varying in methods, often echoed a single mantra: consistency in therapy was key. And so Naomi adhered to her regimen with meticulous care, journaling about her daily experiences to track changes in energy levels, appetite, and emotional well-being. Over time, she recognized patterns in how her body reacted to certain herbs or the phases of interferon therapy, allowing her to tweak her approach accordingly. Yes, the entire ordeal tested her mentally, pushing her near the brink on certain days. It was in these moments that she dug deep into the wellspring of her faith, a remnant of her Kentucky upbringing. She prayed for calm, for healing, and for the strength not to surrender. Although her future in music remained uncertain, she had basically retired from performing to concentrate on survival. Naomi discovered that she could not simply detach from her identity as a singer. Even as she coped with infections and anemia triggered by the therapies, she would occasionally hum along with the radio or softly sing lullabies to chase away gloom. Music in these moments returned to its earliest form in her life, a private solace for mother and family rather than a career asset. Meanwhile, the public and media looked on, some with well-intentioned concern, others with typical, sensational curiosity. While tabloids speculated about the severity of her illness or guessed at miracle cures, more reputable outlets offered nuanced coverage. Medical professionals commented that Naomi Judd's willingness to discuss her condition had spurred greater awareness of hepatitis C. Hotlines received calls from individuals who admitted they'd never considered testing until they heard about Naomi's experiences. This phenomenon exemplified how celebrity narratives can propel public health dialogues, bridging the gap between medical discourse and everyday people who might not otherwise pay attention. As months turned into years, incremental improvements in Naomi's lab results strengthened her resolve. She remained watchful. Even a mild fever could trigger anxiety that her remission might falter. The side effects, though persistent, gradually lessened in intensity. There came a day when Naomi realized she could walk a few blocks without feeling winded, or remain alert through an entire phone conversation. Buoyed by these small but meaningful milestones, she expanded her routine, took short walks outdoors to soak up vitamin D, tried mild yoga poses to maintain flexibility, and integrated nutrient-dense meals to bolster her immune system. Friends, noticing her progress, gently nudged her to entertain the idea of re-entering the public eye. After all, they argued, her story held enormous potential to reach the many who were either waging their own battles with hepatitis C or caring for those who did. Once Naomi's medical team deemed her viral load undetectable, she began venturing out to certain community events, albeit cautiously. During one event organized by a local hepatitis C advocacy group, she stood before a small audience, her first time on stage in quite a while. Instead of belting out a tune, she addressed the crowd with heartfelt candor about the unpredictability of the disease and the significance of early detection. Attendees reported feeling galvanized by her sincerity, describing how her near-mythical status as a music icon amplified the seriousness of the cause. This small step validated Naomi's growing conviction that her life could be bigger than any single platform, be it a concert stage or a private living room. Throughout these undertakings, letters from fans continued to arrive, though now they took on a new tone, reflecting deeper gratitude and empathy. Some offered prayers or advanced health tips, referencing new research on integrative techniques that might help her sustain remission. Others reminded her that her presence, voice or no voice, was missed in the music world. Naomi, for her part, felt a renewed sense of purpose. If previously she had soared to stardom on the wings of the Judds' heartfelt songs, she now felt called to speak beyond melody, using the microphone to advocate for education, compassion, and empathy around medical conditions still shrouded in stigma. It's worth noting that Naomi's entire family dynamic subtly shifted during this period. Wainana's solo career soared, leading to countless interviews in which she paid homage to her mother's fortitude. Ashley's blossoming acting career placed her on red carpets, where interviewers often asked about the family's well-being. Their public statements emphasized unity and pride in Naomi's resilience, showing the world that, while each pursued a distinct path, they remained tightly bound by shared trials and devotion. By the late 1990s, Naomi Judd's remission was stable enough that she felt comfortable exploring intermittent public appearances. When mother and daughter occasionally reunited for special performances, it was an emotional highlight for fans. The hush that fell over the crowd whenever Naomi stood at the microphone, singing a verse or even just speaking a heartfelt introduction, attested to the audience's reverence. These fleeting duets, although overshadowed by her health background, sparkled with the raw synergy that had initially propelled the Judds to the pinnacle of country music. After the final chords faded, fans often left in tears, moved by the understanding that each note signified not just entertainment, but the triumph of human resilience. Reflecting on this chapter of Naomi's life reveals far more than a standard recovery narrative. It underscores the synergy of modern medicine and centuries-old holistic traditions, the power of unwavering familial love, and the bridge that compassion can build between celebrities and ordinary folks. Through interviews, she spoke with candor about how every step had demanded perseverance, from tolerating night sweats and mood swings to summoning the will to face cameras, even when her spirit felt fragile. These experiences also laid down the framework for Naomi's subsequent advocacy in mental health. As the overwhelming side effects from the combination therapy for hepatitis C dissipated, she realized how vital emotional support had been to her survival. Sensing the parallels between chronic illness and mental well-being, Naomi recognized that if individuals battling viruses in their bodies required communal empathy, then those battling depression or anxiety needed it just as badly, often more so due to the social stigma around mental illness. Her own story served as a testament to how an invisible burden can weigh heavily, a truth she never hesitated to reiterate in public conversations. Naomi's steadfast resolve, shaped during those grueling days in California when she supported 2 daughters as a single mother, found its loftiest expression in the grace with which she confronted hepatitis C. She turned what could have been a private struggle into a public mission, seeing herself as a messenger for those who had no voice or felt too overwhelmed to speak. Her life, knit together by music, family devotion, and a sense of communal responsibility, reflected an ever-unfolding capacity to transform adversity into empowerment. Long after her remission, that example continued to inspire fresh waves of patients and admirers who recognized in Naomi Judd an extraordinary combination of star power and human empathy. By 1995, Naomi stunned many by announcing significant improvement. Medical tests indicated the virus was undetectable, a remission she publicly celebrated as a gift of renewed life. With her own life no longer in immediate peril, Naomi pivoted to activism, making her story an example of hope for other hepatitis C patients. While the medical community was divided on the efficacy of certain alternative approaches she used, her insistence on blending both conventional and holistic medicine illustrated that multiple avenues might be needed for complex diseases. Through her media appearances, from talk shows to Senate testimonies, Naomi championed the cause for better screening programs, more empathetic health care, and heightened research funding for hepatitis C. This multi-pronged activism, combining empathy with medical knowledge, turned her from purely a music celebrity into a recognized public health advocate. However, as she overcame this physical ordeal, another front opened: mental health. The intense disruption to her career, plus the trauma of nearly dying, triggered or exacerbated a long-suppressed depression. Naomi's candor about her psychological state was exceptional at a time when few celebrities dared mention the word depression. She revealed she sometimes felt unworthy of the adulation or experienced random waves of hopelessness, despite her success. This admission resonated deeply with fans who struggled with hidden depressive episodes themselves. Naomi's second wave of activism thus took shape, centered on mental health awareness. She recognized the synergy between chronic illness and mental health, pointing out how despair can cripple one's spirit even when the body is on the mend. Publicly, Naomi's life looked as though it was on an upward swing, particularly as she returned to stage appearances, occasionally reuniting with Winona for special events or philanthropic concerts. Yet behind the scenes, ongoing friction, some normal, some induced by the complexities of shared fame, bubbled up between mother and daughter. Winona's flourishing solo career introduced a new dynamic. Fans increasingly identified Winona as the main performer, overshadowing Naomi's role. Meanwhile, Ashley's separate success in acting further altered the family structure, leading to unique demands on Naomi's attention. In media interviews, the Judd women repeatedly had to dispel rumors of feuds or fractures. They emphasized that despite normal family disagreements, love was the constant anchor. Crucially, the mother-daughter duo never lost the intangible synergy that had first propelled them onto the stage. Occasional one-off performances in the early 2000s reaffirmed the magic, even though these appearances were overshadowed by the personal battles they each faced. Winona was grappling with her own weight struggles and the media's relentless scrutiny, while Ashley was tackling advocacy on global humanitarian issues. Naomi found solace in her grandchildren and in watching the next generation of Judds carve out their own paths. Concurrently, her mental health advocacy grew more structured. Naomi contributed to public service announcements, joined mental health roundtables, and supported legislation that aimed to ease insurance coverage for mental health treatments. She shared cautionary tales about ignoring the psychological side of chronic illness, underlining that the medical community had to address both the mind and the body. Some mental health nonprofits recognized her with awards, lauding her transparency and her willingness to confront stigma head on. In one heartfelt keynote speech, she acknowledged that part of her impetus stemmed from regrets about not seeking help sooner, insisting that no one else face the same lonely darkness. The emotional core of her message was that healing, while highly individual, is often catalyzed by communal empathy. Yet it wasn't all public triumph. Naomi admitted that her path to mental well-being was far from linear. She described relapses into depressive spells, the frustration of medication side effects, and the endless search for the right therapist. She occasionally withdrew from public life for weeks, focusing on her personal healing. Like many in her situation, she worried about being perceived as unstable, especially given the entertainment industry's tendency to stigmatize. The irony was not lost on her that while her legacy included a warm mother-daughter image, behind closed doors she sometimes struggled with self-worth and spiritual questioning. In 2016, she offered more revelations about her experiences in her memoir, detailing how trauma can manifest in surprising ways and urging others to remain vigilant about their mental health. The Judd family dynamic continued to evolve. In 2010, Naomi and Winona starred in a reality television series that offered fans a more candid glimpse of their relationship, warts and all. While the show contained the usual reality fluff, it also underscored the authenticity of their bond as they navigated spats, reconciliations, and the complexities of shared creativity. Meanwhile, Ashley Judd became a passionate activist for global women's rights, forging her own brand of courage that paralleled the rest of the family's outspokenness. For Naomi, watching Ashley's achievements was both a source of pride and a reminder that each family member was forging a path shaped by Naomi's original example of resilience. Then Naomi's culminating recognition came when the Judds were inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, an honor that confirmed their place among the genre's immortals. For the induction ceremony, Naomi and Winona took the stage for a heartfelt performance. Observers noted the emotional intensity in Naomi's eyes, a mixture of gratitude, reflection, and perhaps lingering sorrow for the hardships that had shaped her journey. The crowd's applause validated not just decades of hits, but also the testament of a woman who overcame health crises and emotional pitfalls. Some in attendance commented that Naomi's face glowed with the acceptance of a life fully lived, scars and all. In her final days, Naomi quietly intensified her focus on giving back, a profound yet often overlooked extension of her legacy, one that ran deeper than her chart-topping hits or the fervor of sold-out concerts. Though millions knew her as half of the mother-daughter duo, the Judds, and adored her for the warmth she brought to country music, she was also determined to champion causes close to her heart, especially in mental health and medical research. Having battled her own complicated journey, first with hepatitis C, then with severe episodes of depression and anxiety, she recognized that many people suffering similar trials never received the level of support she was afforded. By the latter part of her life, she harnessed her remaining star power to ensure communities that rarely drew attention gained improved psychological resources and better treatments. She channeled much of her resolve into anonymous philanthropic actions. Behind the scenes, Naomi would sponsor therapist visits or short-term counseling for individuals who, like her younger self, came from economically constrained backgrounds. Through trusted intermediaries, she funded educational workshops on mental wellness, hoping to reduce stigma so that those struggling in rural areas might seek help before reaching a point of crisis. Locals sometimes learned only months later that the assistance or grant came from Naomi. This hush-hush approach partly reflected her wish to keep focus on those in need rather than on her celebrity status, a continuation of the modesty she had often displayed when she first rose from a working-class environment to major label success. Naomi also steered new energy into the Naomi Judd Education and Research Fund, which advanced studies into both hepatitis C and mood disorders. Years earlier, she had publicly battled hepatitis C, a liver disease that nearly derailed her entire career. Once doctors declared her free of the virus, she realized how pivotal it was to broaden awareness and research efforts, as countless patients lacked early diagnosis or medical resources. Over time, the fund expanded its mission to include mental health initiatives, echoing Naomi's personal journey with severe depression. People close to her mentioned she believed wholeheartedly that emotional healing could move in tandem with physical well-being, and that stigma surrounding mental illness had to be dismantled through scientific insights, open dialogue, and unambiguous compassion. In these undertakings, some with the backing of her loyal fan base, others accomplished in near secrecy, Naomi Judd refused to let her earlier stardom overshadow what she considered essential humanitarian priorities. Certainly, she would still appear on occasional tribute shows or award celebrations, generating applause as she walked on stage, a reminder of the many gold records and Grammys she'd garnered. Yet behind the cameras, she was traveling to small conferences on liver disease or mental health, encouraging them to develop new scholarship, awarding modest grants to young researchers, or shaking hands with local advocates who lacked star power but worked tirelessly on the ground. She might even visit a newly opened rural counseling center late in the afternoon, chat with patients over coffee, and then quietly depart before anyone could publicize her stop. Observers say these acts of service were just as vital to her identity as were the spotlight's demands. Her personal history of adversity, single motherhood, precarious finances, life-threatening illness, and repeated emotional struggles had taught her that survival rarely comes from isolation. If her platform allowed her to donate, fundraise, or simply encourage, she felt duty-bound to do so. Longtime fans recall that this giving spirit had been visible since the Judds first soared up the country charts. Naomi would often meet fans who revealed heartbreak or health crises, and she'd go out of her way to offer comfort. However, in her final months, she embraced the philanthropic calling more forcefully. She made phone calls to acquaintances in philanthropic circles, securing fresh partnerships for mental health toolkits in small towns. She left checklists for her staff reminding them to follow up on possible expansions of telemedicine for patients grappling with depression but unable to commute. While overshadowed in mainstream media by her iconic music career, these quiet but profound labors arguably defined Naomi's personal measure of success. Sure, gold records and Grammy trophies gave her undeniable star power. But for those who worked with her on these charitable projects, what truly stood out was her willingness to keep investing time, resources, and personal empathy into uplifting strangers. She refused to limit her philanthropic role to figurehead status. She wanted to know the practicalities, the statistics, and the real-life stories. Former colleagues from various nonprofits remember how she'd call them up unexpectedly to ask, "Did that funding come through for the counselor's salary? Or is that mental health bus still operating in the next county?" She recognized that big dreams stay dreams unless hammered into workable details. Naomi's final days thus fused her public image with a deeply personal mission. Although she endured lingering health challenges herself, she refused to slow the pace of her philanthropic pursuits. She recognized that many who shared her background, modest upbringings, rural environments, risked slipping through the cracks of healthcare systems, not equipped to handle severe depression, anxiety, or the complexities of chronic illness. Observers recall that in private remarks she'd say, "I got to see the best doctors." Not everyone does. Let's fix that. And so, between her last public appearances, phone calls to dear friends, or gentle visits with family, she arranged hush-hush check signings or orchestrated a new scholarship for advanced psychological or hepatic research. Those who discovered her identity behind these gifts were often stunned that a woman so recognized might deliberately avoid public credit. There was also a practical dimension to how her philanthropic focus intersected with her personal passions for music and story sharing. On at least a few occasions, she recommended creative arts therapies, music, painting, journaling, for those dealing with trauma or unresolved grief. She saw that as an extension of how she and Winona, through performances, bridged emotional chasms for many fans. So she quietly sponsored pilot programs that integrated music therapy into rural clinics. Some success stories emerged where patients overcame suicidal ideation or learned to manage panic attacks, praising the creative approach that Naomi's discreet funding had introduced. In that sense, the synergy between her star persona and her philanthropic convictions became an intangible but powerful legacy. By the time she was living through her last weeks, those nearest to her recognized that her philanthropic undertakings had become a driving purpose. The career triumphs were behind her, yes, but the seeds she planted in mental health advocacy and hepatitis C research continued sprouting. In some ways, this shift mirrored the transformation of a star mindful that the stage lights inevitably dim. Naomi made sure her deeper beliefs, devotion to improving healthcare access, confronting stigma, and championing empathy, would carry on whether or not she was physically present. People sometimes mention that she had notebooks stuffed with contact info and half-sketched ideas for future philanthropic expansions, a sign of how she was still planning well beyond her own timeline. Though overshadowed by her earlier stardom, which had included countless sold-out tours and a trove of top 10 hits, it's plausible that these final philanthropic gestures will stand as a cornerstone of her intangible bequest to future generations. Fans will always celebrate the Judds discography, but those who felt her silent philanthropic presence, particularly rural communities that benefited from newly funded mental health programs, may remember her just as vividly. For them, a single improvement in a local clinic or a small scholarship enabling advanced research into mood disorders might matter more than any collectible vinyl record or celebrity cameo. Naomi Judd's final chapter thus intermingled humility, compassion, and a fierce sense of responsibility, quietly illuminating how a performer whose name once lit marquee signs could pivot that celebrity into substantial social impact. Her gentle, behind-the-scenes approach contrasted with the fanfare that accompanied her earliest chart successes, but perhaps it was precisely the fruit of a long, self-reflective journey, one that began in rural hardship, soared under the Nashville spotlight, nearly unraveled under severe illness, then found lasting value in championing the very issues that shaped her own life story. And if fewer headlines chronicled these last philanthropic endeavors, that never lessened their meaning for the beneficiaries who found hope and healing, thanks to Naomi's unwavering desire to give back. When Naomi Judd departed this life on April 30th, 2022, tributes poured in from fans, fellow musicians, and public figures. Country radio stations across America played classic Judds hits in her honor. Social media swarmed with messages describing how Naomi's openness about adversity had prompted them to seek therapy, or how her music had guided them through personal storms. Friends in the entertainment world attested to her generosity behind the scenes. hosted dinners for new artists, supportive calls to acquaintances struggling with depression. Some fans posted images of handwritten letters Naomi had sent them, each containing a personal word of encouragement. In her death, Naomi Judd left an echo that still reverberates, a legacy defined not by perfection, but by unwavering humanity. She had soared to the top of country charts and then faced near-fatal illness, had scaled the heights of fame, yet battled the darkness of mental anguish, and ultimately used her experiences as a lifeline for others. The synergy of motherhood, performance, health advocacy, and mental health activism remains a testament to her multifaceted existence. Her story endures as a reminder that even the most luminous stars are shaped by struggles invisible to the public eye, and that the measure of a person is found not merely in their conquests, but also in how they harness adversity to uplift others. In reflecting on Naomi Judd's extraordinary path, one discerns a final note of affirmation. We do not have to hide behind illusions of invulnerability. Naomi's life exemplified the power of combining vulnerability with public courage, turning wounds into wisdom. Through her example, thousands were emboldened to open up about their own health struggles, to reevaluate the shape of their relationships, and to see that unwavering love, whether for family, music, or the broader community, can be a sustaining force. From humble Ashland to glitzy Nashville stages and beyond, Naomi Judd's saga resonates as an empowering narrative that transcends the boundaries of country music, demonstrating how, with steadfast belief in hope and compassion, even life's darkest chapters can lead to a profound, enduring legacy.